I have a special guest here. She is my brand new virtual friend, Caitlin Domner, and I'm going to give you a quick intro into who Caitlin is in just a second. But we are going to be talking all about why community is the key to building a $10 million brand. So, Caitlin, thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
And
I'm so glad we get to do this. Like
oh my
you
gosh.
are such an amazing example of how to build community and pull people together. So I'm really glad we get to kind of unpack this topic and talk about it.
Yeah. Me too. I want to share a little bit about you. So, Caitlin is the co founder of ecstaticway.com. She is on a mission to end emotional suffering by empowering light workers to build profitable and soul fulfilling businesses. She also owns virtualcoachingsales.com, where she built and led sales teams for renowned figures like, you guys know these people, Deepak Chopra and Ali Brown, generating over 11 million in new revenue for her clients in the first 8 years. With an impressive academic background from Oxford University and an MBA from Biola University, she has published The Unseen Sales Machine and Sell with Heart. For the last several years, she has been a digital nomad exploring all 7 continents with her husband and 3 children while pursuing her PhD in somatic psychology. Wow. Welcome.
It sounds like a lot.
It's an
I look
amazing,
good for
amazing.
75. Like
Yeah. No, that is amazing work. And the
oh,
fact that you've worked with even like just incredible mentors and, people that many of us also follow and also see as mentors is just really awesome. So, before we like dive into really what I know people want to know about, I want you to share a little bit about what has led you to this point to where you now have formed the ecstatic way. So, share a little bit about your
mm,
story. Yeah.
yeah, I did. I was working really hard. I was pushing really fast. I know most of us who are building our own businesses, we want to do so much. We want our lives to matter. We want to fit everything in. And we want to, for me, it was very ego driven. Like, I want to prove that I'm good enough, that I'm smart enough, that I can do everything. And so I was working really hard in the
Mhm.
first 35 years to try and create this perfect picture. And I really think I did it. Like, I built the business, I published the books, I married the high school sweetheart, I had the kids. I literally had a white picket fence of the house that I owned, and I had the master's degree. And like, I had all of these boxes checked, and it still wasn't enough. And I was like, well, what I would really love to do is travel the world. And so we decided to sell our belongings and rent out our house and see the world. We traveled through South America, Antarctica, Asia, Australia. And at 18 months into this journey, I found myself sitting on a tropical beach,
Mm.
turquoise water, coconut palms, beautiful, pristine, everybody's dream life. And I was still miserable. Like, I was wondering, should I declare bankruptcy? Should I divorce my husband? Like, how can I run away from this world that I've created for myself? And it made me realize, like, Caitlin, you've literally run to the other side of the planet. Maybe the thing that you're running from is yourself.
Mm.
And this come to Jesus moment where I had to really look and see, all of the success I've built, all of these things that I've been trying to accumulate and boxes I've been trying to check, and I'm still not happy. What is the point of all this?
Mhm.
And that kind of led me onto a spiritual journey. And I ended up having this cacao ceremony in Bali, which I swear is the most
Wow.
cliche mystical experience you could have, like me and Julia Roberts, right? But in that experience, it was like God just said, it's safe to shine. And
Mhm.
for whatever reason, that was like the key in the lock. And for the next 3 months, I was just like downloading this kind of framework for life that we call the ecstatic way framework. And as I started thinking about it, like, why am I here? It really became, how do I end emotional suffering for 1 billion people, right? Because I discovered that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And it's
Mm.
caused by the stories that we tell ourselves that life can be hard, but that's not suffering. The suffering comes when we tell stories about what the hardness means, that I'm not good enough, that so and so hates me, that I'll never amount to anything. These interpretations are really the source of our emotional suffering. And we can own that story, we can tell a different story, and we can really shift our emotional experience to stay in alignment with well being. And so I started thinking about, well, how do I personally do that? And I was like, well, my background is in sales and marketing and the coaching industry, which is all about this anyway.
Hmm.
What if I started a business school that tried to teach business differently? And so we established the Ecstatic Business School. And our goal is now to empower 1 million light workers to reach 1,000 people and really start implementing these spiritual, dare I say, feminine principles of leadership and doing business differently so that we can show up in the world with the power and the authenticity and the grace and the
Yeah.
joy that we really want to achieve. And so it sort of kind of brought me out of almost like semi retirement. And I was like, no, we're doing this. Like, we're going to take this message out to the world.
I love that. I love all of that. And something that really stands out in what you say too is when you say the word light workers. That's a word that you don't typically hear, especially when we're talking about business, but it feels so good.
Yeah, and I don't know that
Yeah.
even people would necessarily associate that. It's just if you are here because you want something other than to just
Yeah.
make the next buck, like if you genuinely care about humans and the
Hmm.
planet and you want to make this world, our motto is build a world you love, doing work you love, with people you love. You're on board with that mission, then you're spreading the light and you're
Right.
helping more of us to shine brightly. Mhm.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So, with that said, let's jump into the conversation about community because this
Mm.
has a lot to do with community. And I know you said community is the key to building a $10 million brand. So, I'm curious, why 10 million? Why not 1 million? Why not 100 million?
I love that question. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can. I would probably argue you need community at every level of growth, but
Hmm.
it's going to look different at every level of growth. So I'm going to speak specifically to like coaches and consultants and thought leaders because I know you have a lot of those people in your
Yeah.
universe. When you're growing, your first 100,000, half a million or so, your community already exists. You're looking at your already existing kind of warm network, your circle of influence, usually 250 people, and that second degree. So you're looking for referrals. Who do you know and who do they know? And you can build a really comfortable $250,000, $500,000
Hmm.
one-on-one business with just that warm circle. In order to get to the $1 million mark, we need to start expanding that circle. You're going to need to start doing networking. You're going to start need to doing educational trainings. You're going to need to start bringing people into the start of this idea
Hmm.
of a community. So this is when we're calling out people who are interested in, like, do you have this pain? Do you have this problem? And we're going to start calling in a level of community of people who resonate with your pain or your problem. But a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck at each of these levels. And so, what I've seen at the $10 million level is you need to start expanding that community and saying, who do we identify as? What are our dreams? What are our aspirations? What is the thing that we are working together? The word community is community with oneness, right? So, what is the oneness principle that's pulling these people together? And so you start moving more into mission, vision, and
Right.
broadcasting on that frequency. By the time you're at 10 million and you go to 100 million, you still need community, but again, it's going to be slightly different. You're going to start building communities around product as opposed
Mhm.
to the entire brand, and it's going to be not as intimate, right? So you could see Apple users who are fanatical about Apple products, right?
Right.
But they have to break it down into smaller groups like your local Apple store or iPods versus iPads versus phones, right? So you start creating these like little mini tribes as well as the brand identity. So it's really just thinking through what is the experience that you want to create. And at each level of your business growth, it's going to be a
Yeah.
slightly different experience.
Yeah, and this reminds me of just working because we work with a lot of different corporate clients, but then also
Mhm.
entrepreneurs that some are just starting out, some are 2 years in their business. And something that I noticed, and I even did myself when I first started my own business is we forget, or maybe some of us just don't really understand that there are these different stages to your business. And
Hmm.
we pretend that we can behave like
Yeah.
these big
Yeah.
brands. And then many people get discouraged because that's not how it works. And they don't see their business growing as quickly as they hoped for it to grow. And, then there's comparisons and why is it working for this person and not this person? And we forget about all
Right.
those stages. So I love that you broke that down into so many stages like that. So let's talk about community. Like, I know you mentioned a little bit about that word itself, but so many people equate community these days to, for example, a Facebook group.
Oh, yeah.
That's not really what we're suggesting to build, right? Although that can help, but that's not specifically what we're talking about.
Yeah, so when people
Yeah.
think community, they're usually thinking container. So, what is the container that I can pull
Mhm.
people into? So, a community of a workshop, a community of the Facebook group. But it's kind of like saying that church is the building. And you're like, well, no, church is not the building. You can have the church experience out in the forest, right? And so it's really thinking about the humans. So instead of
Mhm.
looking at it as a whole picture and how can I increase my number of followers or increase my list size or whatever those metrics are that we're using to measure the community that marketers use that word as,
Right.
it's more thinking about what is the experience? What are the values? What is the purpose behind why I'm
Mhm.
calling people out of their very busy day to day lives? What am I calling them into? Now,
Mm.
it is sometimes nice to have a container, and some containers are better than others for different communities.
Right.
In person communities might meet in a living room, online communities might meet in a Facebook group or Zoom or Slack, right? So you do want to think through the logistics of a container, but the deeper question is what are the principles that I am calling people to raise their hand and say, yes, that's me. I
Mhm.
identify as that. I resonate with this message, this mission, this vision, and kind of calling together a group of people to have a chosen experience of life together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And the experience part, I think, is really important in this. That's a great
Yeah.
distinction between the actual literal sense of a container, a community within a
Hmm.
container, and the
Hmm.
community we're talking about. I love that. Do you feel that it's critical for every brand, or is this just for business B2C companies?
That's a great question. I do feel like every brand needs to think through how they want to do community.
Yeah.
So even if you're a restaurant owner, I was just talking with my friend of mine who owns a restaurant in New York City. I was saying, like, how do you get people to want to come back? How do you get this to feel like home? Like, if you've ever been to a restaurant often enough that they know you by name, they
Right.
greet you, you have your special table, they know your favorite meal, they bring you your favorite drink before you even order it. Like, that experience of being a regular is like the pinnacle of restauranting experience, right?
The
Well, I
VIP treatment.
right? Exactly. So I think every business needs to think through how do I call in my favorite, best clients, the one that I am most called to serve, the ones who are best ambassadors and referral partners, are super heavy users, as they would talk
Mhm.
about in business school, right? Who are the people who are passionate about us? And how do I, A, get them to that point? And then how do I reward them for their loyalty and start creating this marketing, create delivery,
Mhm.
create products, create value and rewards for those people? So we have a whole ecstatic fan club that you can register for, and you get
That's
special
cool.
invitations, you get monthly trainings and networking events with me, you get special discounts on vendor pricing that we negotiate for you. And like if you want to promote the ecstatic business school, awesome, we are going to make this like its own little club that you get to be treated like a VIP. Even if you're not going to be our client, that doesn't mean that you
Mhm.
can't be our sales force out in the universe, like
Right.
bringing our people to us. So yeah, we've actually created an entire community just around people who want to promote us to the world.
That's cool. I love that. I know this is what people want to know
Mhm.
because we want your brains. So tell us, what are some practical things that business owners like myself, entrepreneurs, a lot of the coaches that are in our community, small business owners, what are some of the things that they can do that they can activate now to bring on this community spirit within their own brand?
Yeah, I love that. So the first thing I would probably do is think through who are the people that you genuinely love. So when I was first building virtual coaching sales, I was working with all the biggest names in the coaching industry. And what I just kept finding was that industry attracts and rewards sociopathic level narcissists. And I was just like going from burnout to burnout. And I was just like, oh, you know what I would really love? I would love to have a client who loves and appreciates me, who
Yeah.
sees me as a whole human, who doesn't expect me to work over the weekend, who isn't demanding things at 3 in the morning, right? Like, I really want to have somebody who appreciates me as a whole human. And
Hmm.
I did a lot of deep energy clearing and journaling and visualizing. And literally within 30 days of me going through that process of flushing out the negative energy and rejecting the patterns that we had set was when I closed the Deepak Chopra contract. And I was like,
Oh, that's awesome.
oh, I just needed to get really clear on the frequency that I want to
Hmm.
vibrate at so that I can attract the people who are also resonating at that frequency. And now I simply refuse to work with a client that I don't believe in their mission and I
Hmm.
don't love them as a human, right?
Yeah.
If I'm like, yeah, you could be really successful, but I actually don't want to put my gasoline on your fire. Like, I don't want to make you any bigger than you are now. So doing that gut check, and I tell my sales team this. I'm like, if you do not personally believe in them and love them and believe that they are going to be a contributive, value add member of our community, because we are very protective of our community, just send them some free resources. Don't bother pitching
Yeah.
to them. Just let them go on their way, because you are our gatekeeper. You are the one standing at the gate and deciding who gets to come into this beautiful secret garden we've created and who gets handed a gift bag and waved goodbye. Like, we love you. You just don't belong here.
Right
So,
there. So that's a huge coaching tip, by the way, right now that you just gave. But it's so true. We do the same thing. Like some people ask, well, why do you have an application process to work with you? Or
yeah.
can you send me your rates? I don't have anything to offer you yet. I don't even know anything about you. And so the same thing with us, like we're very, and it wasn't always that way. It's something that, with experience and as you grow and you evolve, you realize there's certain people,
Oh, yeah.
certain businesses, certain, just
There's money
not
you do
everyone
not want.
aligns. And that's okay. You'll be so much happier saying
Yeah.
no than
Yeah.
saying yes.
Absolutely. So get really clear on the clients that make your heart sing and
Hmm.
really talk about, and usually when we're working with our babies, we say find the three. So your three best case studies, your before and after, find your three favorite clients. We do a dollars and hearts exercise to break this all
Hmm.
down, and then look for what's common between the three of them. So it might be gender, it might be net worth, it might be their psychographic, demographic. Like, look at the demographics, which is everything on the outside. What could you search for on LinkedIn? And then the
Hmm.
psychographics, like how do they self identify? What's their inner psyche map look like? What are their desires, dreams, and fears? And just see, are there any patterns? And that's what you start kind of feeling into, is like, these are our people. And then you can say, okay, well, what's my personal mission? And you can really get clear on that. Why am I on this planet? What are my unique gifts and strengths? What am I ideally suited for? And then cross reference it with those three amazing people and say, where does my personal mission align with your personal mission? What do we want to do together that we
Yeah.
don't think we can do alone? And that starts giving you that purpose of the
Hmm.
community. Like, this is the esprit de corps. This is what draws the body together, is that spirit of whatever it is, right? And so this
Right.
is when you start launching your nonprofit because you have a mission to save kitty cats or whales or the environment, whatever it is. Like, you bring together people who have a shared mission and
Hmm.
purpose, and then you can start doing stuff together. And inside of your business community, probably the thing that they want to do is, in your case, get more visibility, get their
Right.
message out into the world in a bigger way. So how do we start building a community that supports each other's brilliance and helps each other to shine? And we are a community that commits to featuring each other on our platforms that we're building, right? How do you create this collaborative experience where people are expected to give as well as receive,
Mm-hmm.
that this should be a reciprocal back and forth, not just like for inside of our lower tier program, we don't include one on one coaching, but you can win one on one coaching. You can earn one on one coaching by giving referrals to your fellow clients. So we're
That's cool.
incentivizing community spirit and referrals, rewarding it with the most valuable thing we have, which is our time. So there's
Yeah.
ways that you can really incentivize things like generosity, collaboration, etc., by just thinking strategically about your identity and what we stand for and how we want to demonstrate that commitment in a tangible way.
Those are great tips. Like, so good. So, any last words before we say bye until next week?
I think my favorite quote from my partner Lucas is that community is where you are missed when you are not present. So
Ooh,
think
that's good.
through your life and say, hey, if I don't show up, who calls me and says I missed you? Right? And start, how can you start cultivating that spirit of community in your personal life, in your
Mhm.
business? Where are you being fed? Like we call it your pack. Like who's your pack
Yeah.
that you run with? And just make sure that you're fully supported. Being an entrepreneur can feel really isolating sometimes. So we want to make
Yeah.
sure that you have your pack of people who have your back as you're on this journey.
I love that. Thank you so much. Until then, you guys, remember, stay social, show up, be a human, and have a great rest of the week. Bye, guys.